So, hello. People always ask what they can do to get their glutes working. Common thing we get is my glutes don't work. It doesn't matter what I do. I can't make them fire. I try really, really hard, but my hips are just tight or my back gets sore. I just can't get my glutes functioning. It doesn't matter what I do. I can't feel them, and that's really quite a common thing that we hear a lot. That goes to us being in clinic, so from a physio point of view or from a clinical Pilates point of view in clinic, but also in our classes. So when our instructors are taking classes, that's a common denominator we hear from everybody. So I would like to inform you a little bit more about glutes, and that glutes is a big global term, and there's different bits of the glutes that you need to be aware of, because how you're approaching them can have a big effect and a big impact on how they then function for you. So if you haven't met me or seen me before, my name is Sari Hewlett. I'm a musculoskeletal physiotherapist, and I work primarily with people who really struggle to function. Now that could be that you've got chronic ongoing issues. It could be that you just want to improve. It could be that you've tried numerous things before and it hasn't worked. And I'm sort of that person that people come to when they've tried everything and they just want a bit more help. So glutes is very close to our hearts, because it's one of the things that most people have conned onto in the last few years, that you need a good strong core and that you need glutes. And because we're sitting a lot, and the way that we work and the way that we move these days means that it's very hard for us to be active. So when we're sat like I am here, our hip flexors get tight. We're not working through our tummy or our back structures a lot, and obviously our glutes, they're not working in a position that's functional for us. And functional means where they're working at their best. So if you think about what your glutes do, there are two sections to what your glutes do. They hold you up, which is your glute stabilizers, and they also power you forward, which is your glute max. So when people come to us and say my glutes don't work, what they generally mean is, I've got a pancake bottom, I want to have some shape to my bottom, and that it's definitely a lot more sort of in the socials a lot more now, that people want to see a shapely bottom, and if your glutes aren't functioning, then you're not going to achieve that. So how do we get them to work, and what's the difference between the two? So being aware, I'm just going to talk glute stabilizers and glute extensors. So I'm going to sort of be, again, a bit global just to simplify it, but there's lots of different glutes that do little bits of action. Some turn in, some turn out, some extend, some do this, some hold up, some push, and some have power. Okay, so if I take myself back, if I'm standing and I'm standing upright and I want to hold myself and support myself, so if I'm standing here or I'm standing here, to hold me upright, I need my glute stabilizers to work. And if we group these as glute min and glute med, so glute minimus and glute medius, and they're sort of at the top section. So if you put your hands on your hips, they're sort of that top section of the glutes. Okay, they do have some functions where they turn in and they turn the leg out at different points, but if we just look at these as your stabilizers, so if I'm standing nice and upright and I want to stay upright on this hip here, my stabilizers have to work to hold me. So when I lift my leg up, I stay still. Now if my stabilizers are weak, what will happen is I collapse. Okay, so when I'm trying to stand, I'm generally going to have my knees and my inner thigh muscles trying to help me, and I'm going to have my back muscles here trying to help me. Okay, if my glute stabilizers aren't working, so they function to hold me and pull me up this way, I collapse. Okay, so that's your first thing. To actually be able to stand and power on that leg or on this leg, we need our stabilizers to work. Okay, now our glute muscle here is what we call our glute max. Now that functions, if you think about it, as a power muscle to propel us forwards. So when we're doing that action here, it starts with our hamstrings. Our hamstrings move the leg backwards, and then our glute max, so our glute maximus muscle, the shape muscle in your bottom, propels us forwards. So first, we need stability. So we need our glute med and our glute min as we take a step. We need that to hold us. And then we want our hamstring and our glute max to power us forwards. Now, obviously, there's a lot more going on in the body, and lots of different muscles help. But if you keep it simple, stabilize and power. Okay. Now, if our stabilizers don't work, we collapse. That means that we're sort of either tucked under and we're using our adductors a little bit more, and then we sort of fall into that posture. And if we're in that posture, we actually can't then extend the leg to activate that muscle, so we can't use it. Okay. Similarly, if we're not able to get really good hip extension, because most of us have tight hips, we're not able to fully use our glute max either. So when we're looking at people, we want to make sure that they can stand on their leg without collapsing, and we also want to make sure that they can power themselves through that leg without collapsing. So that's a couple of things that you kind of need to be aware of if you are trying to work your muscle. Can you stabilize it and hold it still? Can you power it and press and move the body forward? Now, if they're not working and they're not working well, you are losing power. So if I can't hold my body upright and walk, I'm going to get that sort of kind of swagger. Now, as I swagger, it means that I'm using different muscles, and that's when we can get quite sore. That's when we get tight hips, because our hips are collapsing, and we're collapsing as we move. And it might, obviously we don't swagger as much, but we'll definitely see that we're not able to stabilize, so we get that movement through here. If I haven't got my glute max working here, and I'm a runner, for example, as I land on my run, I collapse, and then the only thing I have left to propel me forwards is my back, because my leg's not holding me upright, so something else has to come in. My back might then try and take up the slack, and as I'm running, it's trying to use that muscle. So what I'm getting when I'm running is more a tilt coming in, as opposed to the leg working for me and me staying stable here. So it's quite common as people are running that they run and they might be quite short, they're not running and walking back and moving well. Same thing when they're walking, they might walk quite short and not actually have the step and the push back off their toe, because this isn't working. And if they do have that step push back, they might actually be using their back to achieve it. So it's quite common when people come to see us, or when we're looking at people and how they move, that we need to first work out, are your stabilizers working? And then if the stabilizers are able to hold your pelvis and your body in space, are you then able to use your big glute muscle and your hamstrings to propel you then forward on that? So in a nutshell, it's really, really hard if you haven't got those two components working to feel your glutes. You might then, we get a lot of people who say, okay, when I'm doing everything I can, and when I'm doing stuff, I'm really gripping and pushing with my glutes. Where you need your glutes technically to extend you. And if you're gripping and using them to tuck under all the time, what you're in fact doing is then shortening everything. And you're not using the glute in the position that it wants to be in. So we have to learn how to stabilize first. Stay stable so that when we do use them, we don't drop. And then when we're able to stabilize them, how we then power to use that to come backwards. So when I'm running here, I'm not sort of running with a side to side, and I'm not running where I'm sort of using my back to help and propel me. And that's very common, that if this isn't working, we'll use our back more, and we end up with a lot of up movement, or we end up using our quads a lot because our quads are helping us. So if you'd like to know more about how you can help yourself and how to get your glutes functioning better for you, send me a message, click on our link, or go to sarihewlett.com/mini-programs, and we've got stuff on there that will help you, or come and see us in person. It would be great to get people moving in a way that makes sense, but also makes sense and works. So I hope you've enjoyed it, hope you've learned a little bit, and we'd love to hear from you. Take care.